Hello, Watson for Nebraska followers. Today we're going to have an in-depth discussion on the Lincoln-Lancaster County Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. This is designed to affect Lincoln, but then expand throughout Nebraska. It will affect Nebraska. And this is Bloomberg, the Killer Bee Plan. Bloomberg, Biden, Baird's plan to bring refugees and immigrants into the town. And we'll read the welcoming letter from Mayor Baird as well as Commissioner Shore and the county commissioners to educate you what they're trying to do to reshape Lincoln and ultimately Nebraska and destroy the social safety net. That's what's happening here in this community. Welcome, Dan Beerdorf.
Thanks.
So Dan is a policy expert. We met in Grand Island in a policy debate on this fairground stage. And that's when I said, whoa, this guy's got some intellectual firepower, and have gotten to know each other over time. But Dan gave me a call, and what I think he's the foremost expert on this plan, at least as of today, brought this to my attention. And so I thought it was important to bring Dan on camera and talk through this plan to educate you, the citizens, what's going on, how your social safety net will be impacted both for your kids, elderly, and ultimately you. And so let's just get into it. Introduce the plan to Nebraska.
Well, it's called the Lincoln-Lancaster County Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. You can find it online, and I'd commend everybody listening to look it up right now. It's searchable, and you can follow along or else study on your own. What's interesting, what struck me, Todd, they introduced this on March 30th of this year, and it was rolled out immediately, and they implied that it was something brand new, but it wasn't. They've been working on it for a long time, and it's a plan where what struck me, two things came to immediately. The media first asked questions of, does this have anything to do with the European crisis that we have with the refugees coming from Ukraine? They implied that this plan had to be adjusted or had to be formatted for a European crisis and European refugees. It doesn't have anything to do with that. They've been working on it for a long time. It has to do with the southern border and the crisis of the southern border, where we have at least 7,000 people crossing the border daily now, and at the end of Title 42, as many by low Biden estimates, 18,000. But that I've heard estimates of 18,000 would be 500,000 people a month coming over the border. Those are low estimates. It might be as high as 1 million a month. So this plan is in coordination nationally with accommodating 500,000 to 1 million illegal immigrants every month, and working them into different cities nationally.
Let's pull this back up at a macro level. You have some great points on stakeholders I'm going to get to in a second. But this is, probably a global plan, but really coordinated at a national level against the Killer Bee Plan. Bloomberg, Biden, Baird behind this, and it comes from G4G. Explain what that is, and let's show the audience the targets for this plan.
Oh, sure.
And this isn't some local originated deal.
No, this is the map of Gateways for Growth. Gateways for Growth is a national Bloomberg funded group, and this is their map of cities that they are working with, and these are cities that either have won competitive fundraising or competitive grants, and or have been incorporated into G4G, Gateways for Growth, by the Bloomberg organization. So the city touted that they won a competitive grant, and what I've found is that it looks like the competitive grant is the competition is not so tough. You can get in. They will help you compete. They help cities and localities get in so that you can be part of this plan. So it's a national plan. It's not a local thing that was originated locally. Now, you mentioned stakeholders, and that's another thing that in the March press conference, they talked about stakeholders in Lincoln and Lancaster that are part of it. And that also really cued me in to what was going on, because I was aware of a strategy that I call stakeholder strategy. And this is something that's been employed for almost 20 years or more. I learned about it about 20 years ago, where they will take a predetermined plan with a predetermined outcome and then bring it to a local community.
Yep.
And the local community will they'll invite stakeholders to make decisions on a predetermined plan, and they'll present decisions, and the stakeholders will say will take A or B choice. So it's like me saying, offering you Coke or Pepsi, but you don't like Coke or Pepsi, but that's all you got, and you can choose whichever you want. Maybe you actually want green tea, but we don't have it. We just have Coke or Pepsi, so you're gonna have one of the two.
Yeah, and I've studied stakeholder strategy too. A lot of people don't really know what's going on. They just want to be connected to power, seem like important, they're part of something important, but they're just handing over their name to be used as approval to bring in a pretty much a plan and a strategy that's already been created and executed. Before we go any further, we're going to post a link to that plan here in whatever social media channels this is on for your reference. But again, for easy reference on Google, just search, you can just, the Welcoming Strategic Plan for Lincoln Lancaster County, you'll
That's
find
right.
it.
Yep, the Lincoln Lancaster County Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. Now, stakeholder strategy, if I just want to delve into that a little bit more. So I've got a quote from a book called Behind the Green Mask by Rosa Quarry. And I'd commend everybody to read this. You can actually find it online and for free. It's online for free. It's called Behind the Green Mask, Rosa Quarry, Koire. And I'm going to read a quote from this. It says, describing stakeholder strategy, or what I call stakeholder strategy, and quoting, "So if the new consensus is supposed to solicit participation from stakeholders, then the reverse is true. In fact, the appearance of participation is all that is necessary. You will be there, you will be asked for your opinion, but only on whatever questions the people holding the meeting decide are important. Your objections are to be overridden, and the outcome will be whatever it was planned to be when the city notified you that they had a plan." So it's already predetermined and it's set, and the stakeholders just come on and they're led through it so that they will basically rubber stamp it. And at the meeting, this is again Behind the Green Mask by Rosa Quarry, the meeting can either be a one-to-one or involve many people. The purpose of the meeting is to direct the outcome while giving the appearance that the attendees are having an impact on the outcome of it, or the attendees are having an impact and the outcome is their idea. If the meeting goes smoothly, the attendees will not be aware that they have been railroaded into agreeing to the plan that was designed prior to the meeting. So this is what's happening. So what we have is a Bloomberg plan, and the county commissioners, Deb Shore, and the other county commissioners, Mayor Baird, they've taken this Bloomberg plan out of New York City, and they've brought it into Lincoln and Lancaster and employed it as, and just had invited stakeholders to become involved so that they get their names. So it looks like it's a whole community wide plan. And that's evidented, shown in on page, if you're following along at home, page 24 and 25 of the plan. It goes, they have lists, long lists of, 2-page long list of people who are either in the steering committee or stakeholders. So they brought in a lot of people.
Yeah, and
It's bipartisan, or I'd say uniparty.
just to pause you there. So they want, this whole unity, one Lincoln thing. It's not. So if you read through the list of stakeholders, I mean, you're talking 90% are highly progressive names in the city.
Yeah.
there's a lot of people not represented in this plan. And just for our audience, if you hear Killer Bee, Triple B, or one-sided link, it's one and the same. It's written by one group of people, or it's the Killer B plan, Bloomberg, Baird, Biden. It's one and the same. So just if you hear that lingo, you know it. They're talking about the same thing.
Well, how is it Bloomberg? Is because it is actually developed, sourced, researched, and the policy has been written by the Bloomberg groups. The groups are New American Economy and Gateways for Growth, G4G. And those are both Bloomberg groups, and they cooperate with another group called Welcoming America, which I could not find specific Bloomberg connections, but as far as funding goes, but they do work together in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, and let me look at that plan real quick.
Sure.
What set me, and I just appreciate Dan so in tune to some of the key words that I wasn't, but key words that really got my attention. Again, the opening letters from the mayor and Deb Shore were classic. The mayor writes, through community conversations with stakeholders, they identified the following outcomes. I'm going to come back to outcomes. Equitable access, there's that key word. I want to dive into equity a little bit.
Sure.
Again, we are for equality before the law, equal rights, everyone have the equal opportunity to go pursue something.
Sure.
But equity is the change of the game. It's about outcomes. It's about communism, for lack of a better word. Everyone gets to the same place. So that key word, whenever you hear equity, it's not about equal opportunity or equal rights. It's about outcomes. But it says they identified the following outcomes: equitable access, community connections and civic engagement, education and economic opportunities, safe and healthy communities, and affordable and quality housing. We'll get into property rights. I'm anxious to hear what you say on land trust. That's revolutionary. We'll get to there in a little bit.
It's interesting that they included into a welcoming plan, but they changed. They want to create land trusts.
Yeah.
But nice tie in there.
Commissioner Deb Shore says she recognizes the immigrant and refugee population grew by 16.2%. And she says proactively planning here gives us the durable power of a welcoming infrastructure.
What is a welcoming infrastructure?
What is welcoming infrastructure?
Well, this plan calls for policy changes of infrastructure, of education, healthcare, policing. All must change for this plan. So maybe that's what she means by the opportunity for a welcoming infrastructure. I don't know.
Deb Shore concludes, people feel they belong, refugees and immigrants. They add to our cultural fabric, economic growth, global competitiveness, overall prosperity, and vibrancy. So a lot of buzzwords here going on in the opening. Welcome to the plan.
Right, and the buzzwords, they're searchable, which is useful. The buzzwords are actually searchable, so you can see, you can go through the plan online and search those buzzwords, and you can kind of see how they develop in what they're looking for. But there's a lot of lingo. I misspoke before. There's a lot of lingo in this that are special, I would say, left liberal code words that tip us off on what's happening here in this plan. So I mentioned before the press conference. The media, I was shocked to hear them say, does this have anything to do with the refugees expected to come from the Ukrainian crisis? And the war had just begun. And so it was obvious to me, as just a person who listens to media, follows media, reads media, that this plan must have been developed. I mean, it's 42 pages long. It couldn't have been developed in a week to take care of Ukrainian refugees. So this plan is that it's rolling out nationwide to accommodate an estimated, by the Biden administration, 540,000 illegal immigrants, illegal aliens per month that will enter through the southern border. That's not in response to the European crisis.
Correct.
And that's a conservative estimate in the sense that the numbers are low. That it might, some people estimate that it might be close to 1 million a month.
Yep. And before we get into the weeds, because a lot of this, we will get into the weeds, but we talk about the destruction of the social safety net. And again, in between my Nebraska residencies, I spent 12 years in Texas, or 10 in Texas, 2 in Arizona. and the destruction of health and human services, whether it be education for kids. We can talk about hospital overuse, and the dilution of services is very real. But I think Nebraska hasn't felt those as much as states on the southern borders,
Right.
and that's what's coming here. And from a Lincoln perspective, we already know we've been on a 15-year slide in scores in our educational system, and now we're talking about a diversion of services to more, and it'll talk about prioritizing services for immigrants and refugees. So we're not even talking about equal services. We're talking about prioritization of certain people and more jobs coming down the road.
Well, the social safety net that we are all used to, it struck me. I was shopping just a few days ago, and I spoke to the lady in line who was waiting with me, and we were kind of joking about that we have to wait in line to buy our groceries. But I was saying, this is amazing. What a country we live in, that we have this opportunity at any time of the day. I can go to the grocery store, and if say I want peach ice cream, I can go get peach ice cream no matter what time of the day it is. Well, and also imagine that we just turned off our economy for almost 2 years. We turned it off like a light switch. And how many people died by starvation? Not too many. And compare that with the Great Depression. Estimated millions of people died in America from starvation during the Great Depression. So our social safety net works. People are preserved so that when a president comes to the scene and actually does turn on the economy, as Obama said, what are you going to do? Wave a magic wand and turn on the economy? When we see that actually can be done, in a sense, the economy can come back very quickly. We have a strong labor force that is healthy. So that social safety net is important. And if you're introducing 500,000, 1 million people a month into the United States population, that's going to put extreme strain on the social safety net. That social safety net is for Americans, and our immigration system should probably serve the interests of the country, not the interests of the greater world. So that's how I see it. I mean, social safety is very valuable.
It's right clear in the preamble. They're to promote the general welfare of who? We, the people
Yes.
of the United States of America. And so, and again, we're very pro-legal immigration, no doubt
Definitely.
about it. It's helped our country immensely. But we'll see in this plan, it doesn't say legal, it just says immigrant. And it never really refers to if it's legal, illegal, by design. So it kind of keeps that open as far as a definition.
Yeah. So the plan is a download into the local community from the New York City Bloomberg groups.
Yep.
And the national Bloomberg groups. And so this is a top-down national strategy orchestrated by Bloomberg and the Bloomberg groups that are guiding and controlling the local steering committee by providing, in the plan it says they're providing the research, the drafting, the executing, and the promoting of this Bloomberg plan. It says that explicitly in the Lincoln-Lancaster County Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. And
so in summary, the stakeholders in there, you may trust them, but they're really not going to have a final say on what's going down here.
I don't, from what I know about stakeholder strategy, the stakeholders probably either were complicit. Well, I mean, they probably either agreed with the Bloomberg plan or didn't understand it. I don't think that they developed this plan. This plan was brought to them and was either rubber stamped or they were manipulated and guided through it. And I think that's some of the language in the plan describing how the steering committees worked and how they were broken apart and each delved in a small part. That's consistent with this stakeholder strategy that divides and manipulates different groups to get them along in the plan. Do we have time so I could read some quotes from the Lincoln-Lancaster Welcoming and Belonging?
Absolutely. Let's educate people.
Let's take a look at one of my favorite pages in the plan. I'd commend everybody watching to go to page 14. And I'm going to read from there. It says, in November 2020, the Lincoln-Lancaster County became one of 19 localities to be included in the Gateways for Growth G4G program. as part of the fourth cohort of the initiative. So that's the fourth cohort of the initiative that had 19 cities. I just showed you that map that had dozens and dozens of cities around the United States, coast to coast, that are part of this G4G, Gateways for Growth initiative. I'll continue in the quote from page 14. Launched in 2016, G4G is a competitive opportunity for localities to receive research support and technical assistance from New American Economy and Welcome America to improve immigrant inclusion in the communities. Those are two, G4G and New American Economy are two Bloomberg groups.
Right.
As a G4G awardee, and again, I think the competition was probably weighted, that I'm sure almost any city can get it, and if they don't get it this year, they can get it next year. That's my guess. As a G4G awardee, Lincoln and Lancaster County received a customized quantitative research report from New American Economy on the demographic and economic contributions immigrants make in our community. Okay, so this was a report that the Bloomberg groups provided Baird and the county commissioners, Shore, all of them with their report. Additionally, we received tailored technical assistance from New American Economy and Welcoming America to help draft, execute, and communicate a multi-sector immigrant inclusion strategy. So it's downloaded from Bloomberg. Both organizations have played an integral role in guiding the development of this welcoming and belonging plan. I'm sure they did. New American Economy is a bipartisan research and advocacy organization founded to educate, empower, and support policymakers, influencers, and citizens across the country that see the economic and social benefits of smart approach to immigration reform. What is smart immigration, Todd?
Well, it sounds like it's related to smart growth.
Well, it's not only related to smart growth, but smart immigration is amnesty. According to both the Heritage Foundation and the Council for Foreign Relations, they both are interested in amnesty in different ways, and they both call it smart immigration. The new smart immigration is to have, on one, they want to, there's some talk of, in the media, and you'll find online, smart immigration sometimes refers to getting highly educated people to come to America to help the economy, which is something that sounds great. Another side of it is having some kind of immigration reform, smart immigration, that includes amnesty in one form or another, either blanket or dividing up the different populations of immigrants into identifiable groups, and then putting them on a timeline or a timetable when they can become permanent citizens or permanent residence citizens or something like this. So this smart immigration reform that they talk about on page 14 of the plan, you have to research what that is, and you can do your own research. That's it's implying a type of amnesty. I'm going to continue if I may.
Sure.
New American Economy has created a coalition of civic, business, and cultural leaders who span the political spectrum and represent all 50 states. Todd, you're a civic, business, and cultural leader. You were probably notified about this plan years ago.
Yeah. No, I don't think I wasn't included.
Oh.
Although I've been around the block enough, and I think we've been around the world, but we spent some time on the coast, and it's like, what I've always noticed in Nebraska, we're smart as Nebraskans, but a lot of times those people aren't confident. They want the praise of the coastal leaders. There's a lot of money there. And I watch our county commissioners, our mayor, it's all about moving up the chain for ambition and putting through the coastal leaders' plans here at home.
That's interesting.
And
yeah.
you move up.
Well, that's consistent. This plan is consistent with that idea, and we saw something like that in the this year with different things that the city council did. We find out that some of these very controversial plans that actually went to petition referendums against them in the city were actually coastal plans that they just took the same wording and the same plan and applied it to Lincoln as if that it would fit perfectly here. I'm going to just continue and finish up with this quote from the Lincoln Lancaster Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan on page 14. It says, "Welcoming America leads a movement of inclusive communities from across the world in becoming more prosperous," I doubt it, "by making everyone feel like they belong. Throughout through a membership of network of 200 plus local governments and nonprofits, Welcoming America connects and supports place-based initiatives that work to reduce division and support greater civic, social, and economic participation among new and longtime residents alike. So this plan doesn't refer to citizens, it doesn't refer to the electorate, it talks about residents. So and what they talk about in this plan is developing policy for residents, and sounds fine, but what about the citizenry? So you're not a citizen of Lincoln, you're a long-term, or what do they call it? A long-time resident. And perhaps someone who just crossed the southern border is a new resident, right? Even though they might not have legal residency, they might not have any type of legal rights to be here on a permanent basis, they're a new resident. And so they need to be respected. Their rights have to be respected. Through the through the Welcoming Network, participating members access peer learning opportunities, technical assistance, tools, and training, and help transform their communities into more welcoming places. My question would be, like, who pays for that? So
I can answer that for you.
yeah. Well, and then just to drive home the point, a quote from Gateways for Growth from their website on gatewaysforgrowth.org. In 2016, New American Economy, NAE, now the American Immigration Council, and Welcoming America launched the Gateways for Growth Challenge, a competitive opportunity for public and private sector organizations to jointly apply for up to 3 tiers of support to facilitate local immigrant and integration and inclusion, and which includes customized economic research reports and local immigrant contributions, tailored technical assistance to create an immigrant welcoming plan, and planning grants to fund welcoming plan efforts. So some of it's going to come some of the funding will come from Bloomberg. So maybe that'll be some tax relief for you, Todd.
Very similar to Zuckerbucks. Just
Yes.
bring in money from the coast
Right.
to put a plan through that you want done.
But we see even by Gateways for Growth, their website describes the plan that Lincoln has now. It is the same plan. And then the New American Economy, newamericaneconomy.org, founded by Michael R. Bloomberg. New American Economy brings together a bipartisan group of mayors from across the country and business leaders from all sectors of the economy in all 50 states to raise awareness of the economic benefits of sensible immigration reform. That's, again, smart immigration reform. That's the amnesty plan.
And for those that are naive, Bloomberg ran for president on the Democratic ticket. He lost that, former mayor of New York City. But again, it's classic. The mayor of New York City is a pretty big position on a lot of stratospheres, and they put a lot of new pioneering progressive strategies at work through there.
And what did he run on? What was his immigration plan when he ran for president? An amnesty plan.
Correct.
So you can see the full list of coalition members on New American Economy. And then lastly, again, gatewaysforgrowth.org. The Gateways for Growth Challenge is a competitive opportunity of localities to receive research and support and technical assistance from the New American Immigration Council. That's the New Americans, that in the plan it's called New American Economy, and Welcoming America to improve immigration inclusion in the community. So it's all part of this national plan.
Yep. And we'll get it back into the Lancaster thing, but
Sure.
Again, the point is people think that this is their plan. It's not. This is a railroad of a big national plan, just put with new lipstick on locally. But that's what they're putting through, and we'll get into in the page. We got the classic signs, implicit bias training. Of course, people that are here now have implicit bias. There's defenses. They try to train their people, call them racist. This is racist if you're opposed to it. And then we've got, again, the problem of unequal opportunity. We've got prioritizing people for promotions, hiring based on attributes, not based on performance. And we'll talk through that.
I think that's a good point. It implies the type of uh, systemic racism that we've been hearing about for the last few years. There's a systemic racist problem, so we have to overcome that with new policies and laws, usually through policies, because policies can be enacted without a vote of the electorate. And this plan is also bypassing the electorate, bypassing the citizens that have a vote, and they're just putting it through as a policy changes. So you see, by policy changes, they don't have to go to the electorate to adopt the plan. They can just say, we've adopted the plan, and then it becomes policy. It's very nefarious and cunning.
One side comment, again, I don't want to take us too far off course, but
Sure.
I think Lincolnites have been asleep. And most Nebraskans, I think, everyone's focused, at least in our town, city council and mayor. But a lot of the plans that have been pushed through of these national agendas, whether it be Zuckerbucks, it's through the county commissioners.
Sure.
And the county commissioners have really been an avenue to change things because people are distracted with mostly mayor and city council discussions. And it should be a wake-up call to really examine what's going on through the county commissioner level.
Sure. As a Lincoln kid, you think of Lincoln, we're kind of encouraged by the leadership in Lincoln to think about us as a growing city. And so the county is, the importance of the county for a Lincoln person is often is often diminished. And so they sneak a lot of stuff through the county, yeah. But also, you look at the changes in the city council. I mean, you have candidates that run as working class candidates and then just vote party line and put it through social agendas and vote for social agendas. It's quite stunning, really.
Correct. Sorry, I took you off course.
No,
Let's
no,
get
no.
back to let's go through your next big point.
Well, I think we established that it's the stakeholder strategy is a phony strategy just to get consent. It's a consensus strategy to develop a fake consensus on a local level, which is actually downloaded from the national group. And then we've established that these are Bloomberg groups. And then we've also established, to your point about the killer bees, the Biden agenda of some sort of amnesty plan and a wide open border. So this is all consistent with that. So again, it's not about Ukrainian refugees. It's about illegal aliens coming in and probably trying to come in on a permanent basis. So I wanted to also talk about the plan that it being designed to change the culture in the area that it's implemented. And I'm going to quote again from the Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan, page 7. Again, page 7 and page 14, two of my favorite pages of the plan. And I quote, "One Lincoln champions community policies, practices, and culture change initiatives that advance equity, diversity, and inclusion," as if those things aren't already here in Lincoln. But again, they champion or advance equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as efforts to foster individual community members' personal journeys of awareness and transformation through conversations on topics like discrimination. So maybe you'll be able to join a Star Chamber someday, Todd, and be able to have a struggle session in a Star Chamber about your topics like discrimination. One Lincoln, to quote again, "One Lincoln recognizes that we create transformed, inclusive, new realities by becoming transformed, inclusive people." So they're looking to transform the culture on a personal level as well. And that'll be starting with education with children. Because a lot of immigrants, it was pointed out to me, are already set in their ways. They have probably conservative ideas. They might have Christian ideas. They might have very religious conservative ideas, but their children are vulnerable to change. And they can do that in the school system by having lots of great initiatives. So it's a culture change plan. And then the plan is also in lockstep with what's called, again, the smart immigration reform, and that's amnesty. And I'm going to quote from an article on Capital in Maine. This is an article from capitalinmaine.com. It's called "Getting Past Smart Walls to Build a Smart Immigration Policy." Okay, so it's called, this section of the article is called alternative approach. And quoting from Capital in Maine, 2021, Biden's stance so far, and they're critical. This is a leftist site, and they're critical of Biden for being too conservative. Obviously, Todd. So
Killer bees.
yeah. So it says Biden's stance so far has been to uphold traditional ways of managing immigrants through surveillance, arrests, detention, and deportation. But advocates say that shifting resources out of these punitive measures and into community-based services would save money and lives and prove more effective at processing newcomers. So again, we're going to move from enforcing the law to community-based, similar to the Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. Continuing in the article, as quote, as long as the United States continues to see migration as something we have to stop rather than acknowledge and facilitate, people will continue to lose their lives as people will continue to be forced into those harmful conditions. So it's something, it's a killer bee plan in the Biden sense that it is used to facilitate illegal immigration. This local, Lancaster County Welcoming Belonging Plan that the mayor, Deb Shore, and the other county members signed on to, it's facilitating the illegal immigration. And then the plan also involves policy changes, like we mentioned before, including changes to local housing codes, hiring quotas, and promotion priorities for law enforcement and educators, teachers, and staff of the education system, securing land trusts for housing and all kinds of stuff. And that's smart growth. And
so establishing land trusts for housing.
So the Welcoming Plan, because we're so good, we want to be nice people in Lincoln, Nebraska, and Lancaster. We need to change our policies so that we can create land trusts. What? Yeah, it's kind of a logical jump, but it is happening here in this plan. They want to establish land trusts so they have permanent, affordable housing in Lincoln and Lancaster. So
we reformed the whole concept of property rights. We definitely need to change the culture of Lancaster. That's a bad culture. And
because it's welcoming, Todd.
Yes.
And
we need implicit bias training for the citizens that are there right now to teach them how bad they are.
Not only that, but as the plan, it talks about, I read that quote before about personal transformation through discussion of your discrimination. It sounds like a struggle session from communist China in the 20th century. So it's pretty it's all comprehensive. It's a comprehensive plan for change and culture change. So it is cunning and it is nefarious, I think. So let me quote again. I'm going to quote from the book. Excuse me.
And while you look that up, I'll just reaffirm. We're all about legal immigration, and I think in Lincoln is a very diverse community. But what progress? I mean, we've made alliances because we align on values, and just love the Vietnamese community coming out. They fled communism. They see the danger of what's coming, and just to see the response. We have South Sudanese persecution for their belief sets. Here, we have hardworking people that have come from just all over the world. We've assimilated quite well, but again, we believe in these values of, American values: hard work, rights, liberties, property rights.
Yeah.
These are so imperative to maintain.
Well, the thing is, again, it's when people are fleeing from communist governments, that you mentioned some of them, and they come to Lincoln, they love it, and there is a lot of coming together. I think about that recent petition drive that brought in so many divergent groups. I mean, you had tremendous support from the Vietnamese community. You had tremendous support from the Ukrainian community, the Russian community here in Lincoln, all these new immigrants, the Sudanese community, the Muslim community were incredibly strong supporters on that petition to overturn the misguided policy of the city council. So these groups, that's what I mean by all of these conservative religions. Excuse me, drop my paper here. These conservative religions, they all are very clear on they enjoy that freedom of religion in America, but their children are vulnerable. And the city plan, the Lancaster plan talks about educating the children and putting a lot of pressure on children to and in the education system to reform and to change.
Well, this is just in summary, it's more of the same. Divide and conquer, try to make people feel guilty for, we're done with this. We're together, we're about our values and what makes America great. And it's outlined in our Constitution, Bill of Rights, property rights, individual liberties and freedoms. And this drives at the heart of creating more division.
Yes, and also to create that division for the purpose of overturning the culture and those rights that you just outlined, and to attack the Constitution, the world's oldest Constitution, but also still cutting edge in its ideas of personal liberty. There's nothing else like it on paper in the world. So again, I wanted to talk about the changes to the housing codes, hiring quotas, and promotion priorities for law enforcement and teachers, staff, educators, and securing land trusts. And this goes along with smart growth. And I'm going to quote again from a book called Behind the Green Mask. And that's by Rosa Quarry. And again, this was written over almost 20 years ago when she got into this stakeholder strategy and what was happening to her in California. And she's quoting actually from the Executive Summary of Growing Smart Legislative Guidebook, Model Statutes for Planning and the Management of Change, 2002 edition. Again, that's the name of this that I'll be quoting from. This is a quote within the book Behind the Green Mask. It's from the Executive Summary of Growing Smart Legislative Guidebook, Model Statutes for Planning and the Management of Change, 2002 edition. Quote, "It should be the responsibility of all sectors to provide for and participate in the design for implementation of public education initiatives. Although the issues and political circumstances vary widely, finding common ground among a wide spectrum of stakeholders and the public is essential. Part of this process involves building consensus, educating targeted audiences about the values and benefits of planning and smart growth, and uncovering myths used by opponents to misconstrue smart growth are all essential. Equally important is challenging interests that seek to pass new legislation expanding the activities and quantify as regulatory takings and therefore require compensation under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution." Translation from Quarry. Translation: your government is engaged in indoctrinating you into accepting social engineering in land use and will fight anyone speaking the truth about it if you attempt to pass legislation that will enable you to be paid for restrictions on your land use. The government will fight you. Okay? So, to quote the Lincoln Lancaster Welcoming and Belonging Plan, page 22, support and development of community land trusts to ensure affordable housing is in perpetuity. That's their plan. According to the plan is support the development of community land trusts to ensure affordable housing in perpetuity.
Yeah, very disturbing. And to kind of alliterate, because you're so smart in policy, but the reason Dan keeps quoting Behind the Green Mask is obviously environmental legislation had a successful outcome, which was a very progressive idea at that time, 20 years. And they're taking some of the same learnings from that movement, and they're trying to implement the learnings of strategic implementation of that movement into this movement to continue cultural transformation, property right transformation.
Yes, so think of that green agenda that's been working and working and working for 20 years as research and development. Okay, so they're doing R&D, and now they're using that R&D in social change. Okay, but the land trusts were also part of that, taking the land rights and things like this. Were you not in Austin? I can't remember what part of Texas, but you know about what happened to Austin.
Yes.
So you've seen what land trusts have done to Austin, and they've taken huge swaths of land, closed it to the public, and sometimes these land trusts go bankrupt, and then, oh, surprise, insiders get to buy the land back. Stuff like this happens
that
all the time.
Within the system that they can control. Yes.
Yeah, so you see that in Austin. So let's welcome it. That's our welcoming plan for Lincoln and Lancaster. Let's bring in land trusts so that we can bankrupt those and also sell them to insiders, or, have just take people's land rights and make it into a land trust for permanent low-income housing. Sounds great. Sounds like a great idea. Permanent low-income housing has worked on in big cities.
Yeah, and then you see the base in Lincoln. You'll see elites that support either the mayor or the county commissioner candidates. They'll be on the inside take, or they're in for cheap labor. So it's about a lot of it, not all, but a lot of it comes down to money.
Yeah, and I want to quote from the plan again on one of my favorite pages, page 7. One Lincoln promotes the well-being of every resident through affordable housing initiatives, tenant assistance. Again, I want to stop there because we're talking about every resident. Again, they talk about resident language, not citizens, not the electorate, but residents. So anyone who lives here is a resident, right? One Lincoln promotes the well-being of every resident through affordable housing initiatives, tenant assistance, and policies and programs to ensure healthy outcomes. Ensure healthy outcomes.
They're getting more bolder with the outcomes language,
yes,
which is the equity outcomes.
Equity, and so the difference between equity and equality. So, and you tell me if this is a fair example or illustration. So if I'm in a room and I give everybody $100, that's all equal, right? And you can have everyone tell me what they're going to spend their money on. Will they all spend their money on the same thing? No. But if I tell them, now everybody has the same amount of money and now you have to spend it on the same thing, is that, so maybe that's a bad illustration, but what I'm getting at is equality is not the same as equity. And the plan itself is...
maybe a better analogy
yeah,
is
please.
Everyone has a quality to offer a service to gain the $100, but in equity of outcomes, the $100 gets divided equally, no matter what you did or didn't do to get it.
Thank you.
Everyone ends up in the same.
Saving me again. Thank you very much.
So, there you go.
Oh yeah. So the city plan is now we're going to have equity of outcomes, and who is going to enforce that? The government's going to enforce that. So they're going to need a lot more power, Todd, because they just can't enforce equity of outcomes with the power they have right now. I'm sure they're going to need more power.
And to segue on that, I'm going to jump around to the back. Ironically, the survey. Let's go on the survey, just to get you off a little bit.
Okay.
The outcomes of the survey, tell about the pool they pulled, and then again, you'll see it says,
oh, it's wonderful.
We need more services. We need to spend more on this. We got to spend more on that. And, I mean, to spoil the ending, you got two outcomes. You need more taxes, more government to do these programs, or let's say magically they keep taxes down, which the county commission's a disaster at. You're going to dilute the services you have. You're going to need more of the same resources diverted to deal with this issue, that issue, this issue. So you have a dilution of services to the citizens. So it's one or the more taxes or worse services.
So one of the speaking of services, one of the services that the Bloomberg Group Gateways for Growth provided the Lincoln Welcoming Plan and all of the stakeholders and the steering committees, they provided a survey. This is a Bloomberg initiated survey, and the survey, they surveyed 110 responses, 18 of those people identified themselves as refugees. 24 of those people identified themselves as immigrants. 28 of those people identified themselves as someone who provides direct services to the immigrant and refugee community. I'm reading right from page 26. And then, Todd, 67 of the respondents, in addition to the already we identified 28 as that provide direct services to the immigrant and refugee community, another 67 of the respondents were someone who supports welcoming and inclusion in our community. So the survey is overwhelmingly dominated by immigration industry service workers and representatives.
So this is why it's called one-sided Lincoln. It's not written or consulted with over half the population of different persuasions. And then the conclusions of the survey are all based on the survey takers who are incredibly biased.
Incredibly biased, and they all work for the immigration industry. And then they also further identify, the respondents were also asked to identify their country of origin. So, for example, one person was from Afghanistan, one person was from Angola, 3 people were from Burma. Todd, 61 of the respondents were from the United States. So most were bureaucrats and immigration industry workers and members. Okay, and so what were some of their conclusions?
Oh, here come the conclusions from the biased survey that we all need to agree with.
Policy change. The biggest conclusion was that we needed a lot of policy change, Todd.
Culture change or policy change?
Both.
Okay.
We need policy change to enact culture change. Actually, let me jump into this a little bit. The plan calls for increased services while not mentioning who pays. So they ask, what does the Gateway for Growth results include? Equitable access. So they ask in the survey, they ask, what does equitable access for refugees and immigrants look like? And according to the professionally dominated survey, by the survey that the primary respondents were overwhelmingly immigration industry respondents, they said that access to opportunity, access to services, language access, and English language learning, and access to basic needs. These are all what equitable access for refugees look like. Health equity on page 21, Safe and Healthy Communities Vision. Our community promotes healthcare access and equity and fosters relationships of trust between residents and local law enforcement. Sounds good, but then who pays again is what I want to know. Some of the other survey results were they need increased funding for programming. That was evident on page 30. They say that. Under Safe and Healthy Communities, they want increased access to affordable health care. And again, that goes back to our social safety net.
Yes.
So what changes to healthcare will we see because of this influx and takeover of the healthcare system? We need to invest in safe and healthy communities. These all sound like good ideas, but it takes money and it takes resources, and these resources might move from our aged and our disabled community, for example, people receiving disability. What happens when new stresses are put on with new illegal immigrants? And so I recently saw a survey that over half of new immigrants receive government assistance. So that's an incredible burden if that number jumps from thousands to millions in a year. That's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, and some of the summaries here is, what do civic engagements and community connections for refugees and immigrants look like? Civic leadership and eligible voting.
That's an interesting one.
So the conclusion is we need voting, again, for residents, not citizens, to have community connections for refugees and immigrants.
Well, that's where it comes in with the Bayard-Biden-Bloomberg plan. The Biden part is that they're going to expedite some sort of amnesty plan to get people voting right away.
Here's what challenges stand in the way of achieving this goal, this whole plan?
Please tell me.
Lack of resources, which means we need more taxes or more money. Exclusion, again, the buzzword, somehow there's people excluding. Lack of cultural and civic education. So we need more cultural and civic education.
So I would read that as re-education. So the civics that you have been raised in are not accurate or adequate. You need new civics to explain and justify, a residency being primal over citizenry.
What's your ideas to support this goal? I'm just reading off here. Increase access to resources.
This is the survey results that they are going to use as policy.
And say that community stakeholders are behind this. What does equal education for refugees and immigrants look like? Equal access to higher ed, respect for student diversity. Those are top two. What challenges stand in the way? Language and cultural barriers. Thus, we need more ESL resources. So again, if they don't grow the pie and more resources, then you're going to dilute some of the resources at your schools to support more of this, or you got to grow the tax base to support it's one of the two.
Well, but Todd, don't worry, because the Bloomberg groups will also supply some funding. So there'll be lots of new New York money coming in to change policy. Something to look forward to.
The other challenges that stand in the way: bias and discrimination.
Yes.
So therefore, we need implicit bias training.
Right. So that's again implying that there's systemic racism, right?
Correct.
So the criticism is that there's systemic racism as evidenced by some resistance to mass immigration of illegal immigration.
Yep. Your ideas
And
to
culture
support
change.
this goal: increase funding for programming.
So if you don't want policy change and culture change as determined in there, that's evidence of systemic racism and bias.
What does economic opportunity for refugees and immigrants look like? Fair treatment in the workforce. You can see where the Killer Bee plan's going. We got the welcome letter from Mayor Baird and Commissioner Shore and the rest of the commissioners. This is what we need to do. What challenges stand in the way of achieving this goal? Language and cultural barriers. Lack of professional employment. That's when we start talking about quotas. Your ideas to support this goal: education, training, and credentialing. Access to resources. Educating employers and longtime residents needs to be done to support the goal.
Well, Todd, some of the education recommendations that are in the plan, I want to read directly from the plan. And this is from page 21. I'm also going to read from, let's start with page 21. So engage teachers, staff, and administrators in ongoing high-quality professional development, including training on implicit bias. Implicit bias, Todd, that means that they have inside them implicit bias, institutional and systemic racism. Let me read that again. That's great. So we're going to engage teachers, staff, and administration in ongoing high-quality professional development, including training on implicit bias, institutional and systemic racism, and cultural competency. Support policy changes, and hiring strategies to attract, develop, and retain top administrators, staff, and teachers who reflect students' racial, ethnic, language, and cultural diversity. So those will be the priorities.
Direct quote from the plan.
Direct quote from the plan. Also from page 21. Continue to expand programs to recruit, hire, and retain diverse police officers and sheriff's deputies and supplement ongoing cultural competency training again, cultural competency training for law enforcement with immigrant and refugee guest speakers and trainers. Multilingual skills in hires, promotions, and among law enforcement staff should be prioritized. So my question is, prioritized over what? Over job competency, over job skills? So the cultural competency training will be emphasized. The implicit bias training will be emphasized. The culture change will be emphasized. And I think it's already being done, Todd, because in the plan on page 7 it says the mayor's proposed 2021-2022 budget includes funding for a diversity, equity, and inclusion administrator. This staff person will work to ensure the city hall reflects and can meet the needs of the diverse community we serve. So the budget is already tied to culture change, Todd, already. And this plan implies, the language in that implies it's been going on for a while, because they reference in here historically how Lincoln grew under previous mayors into what we have now. And so this budget plan, the budget's already tied to culture change. This plan demonstrates that, and it implies that it has been going on for a while. So
special bridges and road funds going down. These type of programs, brand new, blow them up with funding.
Well, bridges won't be important, Todd, because we won't have an economy that needs bridges. But bridges are only important to move products around.
Right.
But we don't need that anymore because we'll have a different type of economy.
Yeah. I'm going back to the survey because it
Sure.
leads into what you talked about. What does a safe and healthy community for refugees and immigrants look like? Culturally competent and trusted public safety services. So
As
that's
if they're not now.
that leads to those quotes of implicit bias
Yeah.
training, so forth, that needs to get done. Culturally competent healthcare. Not if you're competent at healthcare, what you do.
Oh, good point.
If you're culturally competent, why you do healthcare. What challenges stand in the way of achieving this goal? Law enforcement, time, and resources. So more of that needs to be diverted to refugee and immigrant
Right.
populations.
So we already have a crisis of an understaffed police force in Lincoln, but we're going to have hires and promotions based only on if people understand their implicit bias. If you don't understand your implicit bias, you can go and talk to someone about just how you feel about discrimination, and maybe you can get a promotion if you change your ideas.
Yep. Your ideas support this goal again. They're just hammering home the point what needs to get done. Increase access to affordable health care. I think they talk about signing up for Medicaid in there, which, kind of blow up that system. What does affordable and quality housing rights. So they're going to transform property rights. What challenges stand in the way of achieving this goal? Housing policies, code and fair housing violations.
So they're implying that they're going to change housing codes, and on top of a permanent land trust that they call for in the plan. So it's quite amazing and startling. But again, remember going back to March 30th when they introduced it, they just said, well, we've got a lot of stakeholders involved, and it may or may not have something to do with 3,000 Ukrainian refugees coming to the United States.
Yep.
And the press did not follow up.
Nope.
So that this plan itself is an indictment on our media as well.
Yep. And last one on the survey. It just gets so blunt. It's in your face. Your idea is to support this goal. Provide, not promote, provide housing and other types of support.
Todd, if you have 500,000 to 1 million people coming to the United States, you're going to have to provide housing.
Have to.
You're
provide
going to have
it.
to.
And who's going to provide it? The current citizens. It's unbelievable.
It is. And that's why I was startled by it and why I dug into it. So we don't want to leave everybody on gloom and doom, but there are ways to fight this, and one of them is to become aware of it. So I'd encourage everybody to go to the Lincoln-Lancaster County Welcoming and Belonging Strategic Plan. It's online. You can research it, and you can it's searchable, and it's also on the, you can see some of the people on the steering committee. You'll recognize some of the names, maybe some of the people, you know them. You can reach out to them and educate them on the plan that they've come up with. The plan is done. So the people who think they're on the steering committee and they're stakeholders and that they're going to be able to influence this plan, that might not be realistic.
It's not.
The best way to fight this plan is to become aware of it and decry it and ask for to see what's in the budget. And if the budget is already being paid for, as this plan happily claims, that the inclusion is already in the 2021-2022 budget, we need to see that budget. And we need to question this and fight it and speak up against it and research it. A lot of people watching this are probably going to be more knowledgeable about some of these topics than either you or me. So we got to get them going too. So everybody can work on this.
And mostly got to vote. We need to change out this
Yes.
mayor. We need to change out our county commissioners so that we have people representing the interests of we the people of the United States and we the people of Lincoln. This is ultimately going to affect Nebraska. So and again, don't let them divide you. They will go to the old time tested tactics of call everyone racist. We know we're not racist. We have different members in our community. We stand together behind American values, property rights, individual liberties. These are important, and we need a lower tax and spending base to preserve the freedom of the citizens we have here.
Yeah, and the Bill of Rights in the Constitution are human rights. And the people who signed on to this might not be fully aware of what they were signing on to. I mean, the plan does not go into how New American Task Force and Gateways for Growth are all Bloomberg groups, and how they and people who are stakeholders and steering committee members probably don't understand that the plan was downloaded and they were given limited options, and they probably don't understand how they were divided, and people who might have been not interested in the plan were diminished, and their ideas were heard but not used. So don't let it happen again. Don't be part of a stakeholder strategy, and be aware of that when it's happening to you, or if it's offered to you. And there are strategies that we can develop that will fight this plan, and they're not going to make it, because we do have a Bill of Rights and we have human rights, and we can fight this plan.
So in conclusion, we got to stand up to the killer bees. We can't have Baird, Biden, Bloomberg running coastal policies into Lincoln. We can't let our county commissioners go along with all these endless plans. They need to be stopped.
Well, some of the jargon.
And let's preserve our social safety net.
Right. Well, even again, the people that signed on to the letter at the beginning, Deb Shore and the mayor, they might Deb Shore might not even know what she means by some of this jargon that she uses, but it's a failure of the county commission to sign on to this at large. But I'm sure some of the county commissioners are also stakeholders and very involved in bringing this plan to Lincoln, so they need to be voted out as well.
So thanks for joining us. I know this was long today, but it's important you learn, and we did a deep dive today intentionally. You need to start becoming more aware of the lingo being used, be more aware of coastal policies that they're trying to implement here and how they do this. So hopefully you found this education useful, and pass it along to your friends. Thanks for joining us.